Hey there, Matt Smudio here. Thanks again for returning for my wrap-up video on this commentary feedback for this comment from Rundown Vids. I'm gonna try to wrap it up this time here. Now, a couple things I may have kind of glossed over a little bit. I'll return to here. I think I kind of missed talking about blacklisting, and this topic around updating, when you should update, and how that relates to like your custom packages that you've built and that kind of stuff. So let me just add some thoughts around this here. First off, blacklisting. Okay, so blacklisting could be a generic term that refers to the concept of having a blacklist that is a list of stuff that is explicitly supposed to be excluded from a process. There's a general concept of doing that. I mean, you can have an email blacklist. There's all sorts of different contexts in which you can have a blacklist. In Slackware, especially with Slack package in particular, the Slack package has its own blacklist. And that's, let me show you that. If you go to Etsy Slack package, you can see there's a blacklist here. And when you add a package name into this blacklist, it tells Slack package to not consider this package at all. So basically, you're excluding it from any of Slack package's activities. There's some reasons why you might want to do this. The basic concept is if there's a reason why you don't want Slack package to interfere with what you're doing with that package on your system. A real obvious example is you're not using the upstream, the package from the distribution or a Slack build, a standard Slack build or anything. You're not using a version of this package that Slack package should be messing with. You're using your own version, a custom version or whatever. Oh, excuse me. So if you do have a compelling reason to not use a distribution package or a Slack build package, and you want to build your own, you're going to be managing that package yourself. You don't want Slack package to step on it, so you would add that to the blacklist. That would be one thing. Here's another reason, another real great use for the blacklist, the Slack package blacklist. And that's, we have Free Slack, which is a variant of Slackware. And in case you've missed my explanation of what Free Slack is before, we basically take the upstream Slackware, and we don't really do hardly any changes at all to it. The only change we do is we prune out any non-free software, and so thereby turning the distribution into a completely free, freedom-respecting, according to the FSF and GNU, totally free totally free Linux distribution. And so we basically replace the stock Slackware kernel or the stock Slackware build of the Linux kernel with the Linux Libre build of the kernel. And we prune out some of the software packages, like XV. XV is non-free software. I have no idea why Slackware continues to include it. I don't know of anyone that uses it. It's really old, and there's much better programs around that do the same stuff that XV does. So I don't know why it's in there still, but we prune it out because it's non-free. And there's some other things. If you want to check out Free Slack, the details of that, www.freeslack.net. Go check it out. It's pretty cool. Anyway, we use the Slack package blacklist because we don't want the Slack package, when you use Slack package to do upgrades and updates and stuff, we don't want it to go out and pull down the stock Slackware kernel, which is tainted. That would taint the operating system with non-free, with the non-free kernel. So we blacklist that, and instead we allow Slack package. If you can set Slack package to use our repository, which you can update the Libre kernel from our repo. And your free Slack installation will stay free. So we use the blacklist for that. We also blacklist out all the non-free pieces of Slackware. So that's what blacklisting is, and that particular blacklist, only affects the behavior of the Slack package program. It doesn't affect anything else. Okay, but like I said, you may use it because you have done some stuff with your own packages. You want to make sure that Slack package doesn't mess with them. You may add those to the blacklist for that reason. So there's that. Okay, let's talk about. I think I addressed why you would use a vanilla, or why not to use. I'm taking your use of vanilla to mean built from scratch. In other words, not using a package from upstream Slackware, or not using a Slack build, the way that it's out of the box kind of. That's what I'm taking when you say vanilla. I'm taking it as you just build it from scratch directly from the software author. I've given you some pretty good reasons not to do that. When would you want to do it? Well, your own needs would drive that. I mean, if you need a version of software for something that you're working on that doesn't have a Slack build, isn't compatible with an existing Slack build, and doesn't have the right version in the Slackware distribution, and you really need to do it because of something you're working on or something, which developers run into all the time. I run into that all the time. You're going to want to do a vanilla package in that, a build from scratch package. And if you're in that situation, you're going to really be on your own in terms of dependencies. It may cause sweeping changes throughout your system of stuff that the package that you're trying to build from scratch, it depends on certain things that just aren't available, or they're at the wrong version or whatever. It could ripple through your whole system. And so you're literally on your own, and your mileage may vary. You may have a very difficult task in front of you to resolve all that, or sometimes it may turn out to be fairly easy, or anywhere in between. And you're literally just on your own, and that in itself is actually a compelling reason to just stay away from that if you don't have a compelling, concrete reason to get into it. You're just going to be so much better off if you can stick to the well-known and reproducible routes to getting a package for the software you need. I'm not really sure of a more clear way to put it than that. I mean, another way to look at it is I wouldn't even want to get into trying to make an exhaustive list of all the different little kinds of problems you can run into. Just building your software from scratch. I mean, I used to do it, and it was a good idea at one point, but we've kind of evolved now to where, and really it's almost like an issue of scale. So, I mean, it used to be that your Linux system in the early days, it was really small, tight, and clean. There wasn't really very much software involved, and most of the software was actually in the kernel. And so, you look at your system and you have less than 100 packages, less than 100 pieces of software installed, or less than 100 separate pieces of software installed. Well, today you look at a Linux system and it's thousands of pieces of software, and the depth of what things are built on top of other things. Sometimes I like to call that the technology stack. The depth of the technology stack has grown dramatically. And so the interdependency of how this stuff weaves together and what things depend on other things has gotten to the point, it's evolved to a point, and our expectations of this whole stack of software, we are expecting our computers to do so much more than we used to. And so what comes along with all that is it's too much to manage manually anymore. It used to be really, really a good idea to take control of that and really manage it manually, but it's grown beyond that now. And it's almost painful for me to admit this, because I hung on to the, really keep a tight control on everything kind of in a manual sense. I hung on to that sensibility for a long, long time. But really, probably in the last 5 years or so, I've come to the realization that we have to give that up to some extent. Now, I still like to be able to dig in to whatever level I need to, but I only do it when I need to. I'm not going to burden myself with constantly having to do that all the time. And so accepting the well-known reproducible routes to your software packages is one way to relieve yourself of that burden. So I do recommend that. Hopefully that clears that up. Okay, so build anything you want from vanillas. Well, it's if you have a reason, go for it, but accept the ownership of it. If you don't have a reason to, there's no sense torturing yourself over it anymore. So there's that. I mean, there's nothing wrong if you want to play around with it and learn from it, then go ahead, set yourself up a play system, build stuff from scratch and see what breaks and knock yourself out. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's no better way to learn, really. It's a great thing to do. Don't try to do this on a system that you depend on operating. Don't do it in production. Don't do it on your primary desktop. Or if you do it on your primary desktop, do it in a virtual machine so that you're not down and can't do your work because something isn't working. Be smart about it. That's, probably about all I could say there. Okay. Well, I think I've covered pretty much everything in your comment. It took me 4 little videos to do so. I do like to ramble, so if that gets boring, I apologize. Let's see. There was a couple other things I was going to talk about. Oh, okay. So, yeah, my migration to VidMe. I talked about that. I'm going to try to kind of focus my videos more there. I will still keep putting them up on YouTube for a while at least. I don't know. I'll see how that plays out. We'll see how it goes. If I get all my subscribers and viewers if I see that they're all watching me on VidMe, then I will probably phase out YouTube and I'll just stick to VidMe. So it's kind of up to you guys. And also with these topics that I do in my videos, me going through this post and talking about these points has been a little bit more on the philosophical and practices, the topic of practices. I don't know if this is the kind of stuff you guys really like to hear or not. So if you do, let me know. If you would rather that I just stick to kind of the more technical topics, like kind of the how-to and exploring some of the deeper technical approaches to doing things in Slackware, I'm certainly happy to stick to that too, if that's what you guys would like. Just let me know. And I'll just keep, doing videos with what, at least, what seems the best topics that I can find. I know that I've had a couple requests for things like here's one, compare Ubuntu and Slackware. And, this is something that I intend to do. I'm going to do a video on this. Partly because I have actually come to an elevated appreciation for Ubuntu in the last, I'd say 3-4 years. I started using Ubuntu because that was the only distribution at the time that supported my professional audio hardware that I was using to do my home studio recording activities. I'm a musician. I do home studio recordings. I use Ardor as a digital audio workstation, and I use Hydrogen as a drum machine. And I combine them with I use them through Jack, which is a really great piece of software, and I enjoy the stability and the availability of constant new versions of all this stuff on Linux. I mean, I love doing audio on Linux, but at the time when I was really getting all this stuff going strong, Ubuntu was the only distribution that had really solid support for my audio hardware. So I started using Ubuntu Studio for that, and I kind of got a taste for it. There's some things about Ubuntu that I've liked, and so what I've done with that over time, or how I've kind of evolved into it, is I don't really use Ubuntu myself for much desktop work. I only use it for home studio stuff. But then I also with friends and family that I'm able to kind of convince to get onto Linux, I've been setting them up with Ubuntu because there's aspects of user friendliness that I had tried to set people up with Slackware at times, and I just constantly got complaints, and they kept running into problems that there was no way they were ever going to learn how to solve, because they have no interest in learning the internals of their operating system. They just want a computer that works. So I found that giving those people Ubuntu, all those kind of complaints and problems disappeared. So that's there's some value to that. So I'm not an Ubuntu. Ubuntu is not my distribution of choice. It's not even close to my distribution of choice. I still prefer Slackware, and I'm still very into Slackware. But as I'm kind of trying to explain here, I've come to a level of respect for Ubuntu, and I'm going to provide a video. I'm going to do some comparison and show some of the things that I've found with Ubuntu that really kind of erased my contempt. I used to really not like Ubuntu, but I'll show some of that stuff in a video. So look forward to that coming up. Otherwise, let me know what you guys want to hear about, and I'll just keep going along as I can, the best I can. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.